this is the operator. I would like to inform all parties that today's call is being recorded. If anyone has an objection, you may disconnect your line at this time.
Thank you.
Sir. You may begin.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jim Fortner at the Soil Survey Center. I think we're still having a few people join, but we've got 60 or so online at this point. Hopefully you're connected to your live meeting, and if so, you should be seeing the opening slide. The operator said this session is being recorded to where it can be put back later, but we'll hold on here just for a minute, and maybe some of the other people joined in, and we'll get started. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. May I have your passcode, please?
Thank you. Kind of strange. I've got 76 on the video so far. I want to set up 100 lines, so we'll see how near we get to it. Oh, you had the coordinates in it. Well, the JPEG had coordinates. Oh. Okay. I know we got 80 or some on here so far. Yeah, a lot of people must have. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and start. For the webinar this month, I was asked to give an update on what is included in the NASIS 6.1 release and the upcoming Web Soil Survey 2.3 release. And then at the end, I might give you a few teasers as to what you might see beyond those releases. Yeah, it's recording. In NASIS 6.1, which came online last Monday morning, we've had about 1,175 successful installs across the country. And yesterday we counted, showed that there's about 25 or 30 failures, which is a pretty high success rate. There were another 70 or so that were still pending. We don't know whether those have succeeded or not, but I think ITS is going to suspend broadcasting of the install. So I think at this point it's safe to say if you don't have it, you're likely not to get it on your computer, and you need to talk to your local ITS folks to have them install it manually. There are a few people that have had some trouble with being able to reinitialize their local database, and the hotline staff will help them through that. So if you run into issues, get a hold of Tammy or Steve, and they'll try to help you through it. During that deployment, we also released an updated Soil Data Viewer Rule Manager tool. Basically, this is a holdover from the NASIS 6.0 release a year ago. It just never did get pushed out until now, but it takes advantage of the new table structure that the interp rules are stored in, and mainly that the rating classes are now in their own table, so they can pull that data in. We also released an update of some bug fixes to the SC and OSD maintenance tool at the same time. So those three items should all be operational at this time. In NASA 6.1, the major features that are included was what appears to be a pretty dramatic improvement in the performance, especially when you're editing tables with a lot of data in them, a lot of records. And some of that carries over into running reports as well and other activities. There were about 50 bugs that had been identified in the NASA 6.0 version that have been fixed in 6.1, and we do have a set of, or a listing of those that have been fixed, and it'll either be posted on the website or we can make it available to you if you're really interested in which ones were included. There was a number of new data tables and columns added to support storing data collected as part of the Rapid Carbon Assessment Project or Dynamic Soil Properties data. We'll talk a little bit later about importing the Excel spreadsheets for these projects into the database. We can also capture the VNIR scan files and import those into NASIS. We can run national reports, or reports against the national database, I should say. Those can be run in background, which frees up your computer to go ahead and continue editing in NASIS or do other tasks. And we've gotten some reports back that is a very drastic improvement on the speed of those completing, and allows many more of them to complete. They don't time out. There is still a chance that you could run into an out-of-memory error with too big of a report. You can now view reports, queries, rules, evaluations, property, scripts, and etc. in the editor grid, along with the other tables that we've had before. You can't edit them there, but you can view them there. I'll talk more about all of these as we go through here a little bit. There's a new drop-down selection method for opening child tables, and you can run multiple validations or calculations at once, which should be a big improvement. As far as the rapid carbon and DSP data, the new data structure diagrams show the new tables that have been added. They show up in pink on the diagrams as being new tables in NASA 6.1. So here in the PET-ON object, there's 5, 6, looks like 9 new tables. 10, 11 tables in the PET-ON object were added, as well as a considerable number of columns added to existing tables like PET-ON and PET-ON Horizon. In the site object, we added 2 new tables to record woody basal area data and trees counted data. The first big addition to 6.1 is the ability to import these spreadsheets and workbooks that are out there dealing with rapid carbon data. There's a menu toolbar button added to import spreadsheets. There's also an item on the NASA spreadsheet that you can use to initiate this process. When you invoke it, either way, it opens up a browser window where you can browse to find the spreadsheet that you want to, or workbook, I should say, that you want to import. You can select multiple workbooks to import at once. You can go off onto other network drives to select those, including the SharePoint sites, to import those files. So you can highlight them using a control click to highlight multiples, and then hit the open button, and it'll start the process. There are some requirements associated with these spreadsheet or workbook imports. We have to develop a mapping file for each worksheet of each version of each workbook that's being imported. And we store those mapping files in the NASIS database. There's a special table for them, and those are used during the import process. We currently have those developed for the RACA workbooks version 2.07 through 2.14, and we're working on a new one, a version 2.15. But with these import routines, we can import any of the versions, existing versions of that workbook, which means nobody's going to have to transfer data to a newer version. We got over that hurdle. There is some change. Now, what we had to do in order to make that happen was, if you had any records off of Woody sites where you recorded the basal area factor and the 4 trees counted data, we cannot import that off the older ones. For the version 2.15, it's being worked up to where it will import all that. But the people here and they connected with the project said that's okay. We'll deal with that leftover data later if we really decide we need it. There's also a workbook that's in the process of being developed for dynamic soil properties. George Teachman has the workbook drafted. We just don't have the mapping file built yet to import that data for it yet. But that should be coming. We're looking at other types of spreadsheets that we might do down the road. Darrell Couts is looking at a head-on description, a 232 type spreadsheet that we might be able to use down the road. We don't know for sure, but that's got some real potential. And we think this process could, if the decision's made to bring in ecological site data, we could do spreadsheets associated with that. Some of the rules related to RACA specifically and the DSP stuff, the import process appends the data from the spreadsheets to existing site and pet-on records in NASIS, meaning those site and pet-on records have to already exist in NASIS, either by importing from pet-on PC or creating them directly inside of NASIS. Also, so you have to have the site association in there, record in there as well. Also, when you get ready to import these spreadsheets, those records have to be checked out, because when you import that data, you're editing those data records or adding to them. So you're editing them. So in order to do that, they have to be checked out. So that means that whoever is importing the spreadsheet has to be a member of the same group that owns that site and pet-on record in NASIS. It's probably going to cause a little heartburn, but that's the way it is. On top of that, it is very important and essential that the user site IDs, user pet-on ID, site observation date, and horizon designations of all horizons, they must agree between NASIS and what's recorded on a spreadsheet. Any mismatch will cause the import to fail. And the said, multiple spreadsheets can be imported at the same time. There is an issue, somewhat of an issue with local plants. On these spreadsheets, you can record plant symbols and local common names. In order for the import to find the appropriate local plant record in NASIS, those things must match exactly. If you misspell a common name or put down the wrong combination of plant symbol and plant name, it's not going to find it, and it's going to abort the import process until you fix it. It may mean that you've got a plant recorded on the spreadsheet that doesn't even exist in the local plant table at that time. So you may need to work with the appropriate people to get new local plant records added to NASIS before you can import that particular spreadsheet. During the import process of the spreadsheet, the associated VNR file can also be imported. And here again, there's a must situation that the VNR scan name, file name, on the spreadsheet must match what the file name of the scan file itself is in order for it to find it. If the VNR scan files are stored in the same directory as the spreadsheet and workbook, they're automatically brought in during the spreadsheet import process. If they're not stored there, they can be imported separately through an option within NASIS. You can go into the Pet on Horizon VNR scan table and click in the VNR file name column and click the open button, and it'll allow you to browse for the appropriate VNR scan file to bring in. The downside of this method is it's a one-at-a-time process. So here's an example. I've opened up the Pet on Horizon VNR scan table, and here's the column, the VNR file name column, and there's this little three-dot button here. You click on it, and this browse window opens, and you can click the open button there, and then it allows you to browse your computer or network drives to find the appropriate scan file and bring it in. Any questions on the spreadsheets up to that point?
Just a quick one, Jim. If we were to develop, say, like a state-specific or MLRA-specific worksheet, is that something that the center would help us prepare the mappings for, or are you trying to stay away from custom stuff like that?
Well, custom ones could be done. It's just that we have to develop, it has to be put into the proper format. And it's not just a plain spreadsheet. That's the first phase of it, obviously, but then you have to develop the appropriate data entry sheet off of that for the import process to work from. So we'd have to work with you to get it in a proper format, and then to be able to, we'd have to develop the mapping file. Only people that associated with Pangea, a particular group in Pangea, can develop those files. But it could be done.
Sounds like an option, but maybe a lot of work.
It could be more, I'm sure it's more work than you might anticipate.
Okay. Thank you.
You can talk to George Teachman about all the strife and troubles he's gone through to get some of these to work. Some are pretty complex, too, so that doesn't help any.
Okay.
He's our resident expert on them at this point. Anybody else have a question? Okay. Another feature is that you can run reports against the national database in an offline mode. As I mentioned before, this speeds things up and frees up your computer for other activities. There's a menu option, or you can right-click on a report name and it opens up a dialog and it says run offline against the national database, the new option there. Or you can go to one of the menus up at the top of the page and you get the same type of an option. A big benefit, in addition to freeing up your computer to where you can go ahead and do something else, is that it does avoid the 10-minute timeout that's in a firewall that we have no control over, that's in Kansas City for these reports that take a long time. But as I mentioned, you could still hit a memory limit issue. I don't know if anybody's done that yet or not, but I've heard some that trying to do them in NASIS 6.0, the report might have taken several hours to complete, if it completed at all, and it completed in considerably less than an hour running offline. So whether it's this process or just the overall improvement in performance, it's hard to know what to attribute the gain to, but it is significant, it seems like. As I mentioned, you can now view reports, queries, etc. in the grid. You can run the appropriate query to bring these data objects in your selected set with reports, queries, rules, evaluations, etc. into the grid in your selected set, and you can view that table. What this allows you to do is check in and out a group of records at once, or to change ownership on a group of records at the same time. As I mentioned, you cannot edit the script in this mode. If you click in the column for the script itself, it will open up the report in its normal tab format that we had in 6.0. So here's an example of the report table opened up, and you can see the report names. And here's the column of the report where the script is. I clicked into that, and then, whoops, I didn't get a screen, but then it goes ahead and opens it up in the normal tab mode. Another feature is offering a new way to select child tables to open. I'm in the head-on horizon table here, and you'll see a little black arrow to the left of each record. If you click on that arrow, it shows a drop-down list of all the child tables. Just click on one, and then that table's opened up, and it jumps to the tab for that table. You can still scroll across, tabbing across like we did in 6.0, but this is just another feature, and seems to me it's a lot quicker and easier. And then once I'm over in that child table, I can click on the down arrow again and get its children to open up, and so on and so forth. We can now run multiple validations or calculations at the same time. Calculations could be a little dangerous because you might be turning around using a computed value in another one, so I'm not sure what happens then. But showing validations here, and I've highlighted multiple ones of them using a control click. And what seems to me, it shows these three, but then the last one I clicked on is just shown surrounded by the dotted line down here, component restriction. It actually seems to have all four of them selected. And of course you can run it against whichever rows you have highlighted, or there's an option to run against all rows in your selected set. So off the Calculation Validation Explorer menu, there's the option to run against just the highlighted rows in the table, or run against all rows in your selected set, which should speed things up too. So that's it on NASIS 6.1. Does anybody have any questions on it?
Yeah, I had a question, not so much about 6.1, but just display. I don't know if there's any way to, I don't know if other people have a problem seeing your slides. Screen.
What problem are you having?
Well, I can only see about a quarter of the slide, so everything you're talking about.
Oh, that's too bad.
Not on my window. So I don't know if you just zoomed in or.
No, I'm just showing it full screen. I don't think there's much we can do about it from this end. You may be able to change the resolution on your monitor to see it differently.
I think you have to change your monitor to get people to be able to see it.
I would guess most of us got that issue.
Thanks.
It is just the application. Okay.
I've got the full screen.
That worked.
Well, seeing it like this, does that work better?
Yeah.
So you're going to tell me it up so the rest of us have to watch that?
Well, you'll see the same content. I suppose it's little on your screen, huh?
It's okay.
Is it okay? All right. Let's move ahead. So, Sole Data Viewer, let me back up there. Rule Manager is out for those. This pretty much is only used by the state offices and us here at the center. But for those of you that do use it, there is a new URL associated with it. Slightly different. I don't know, Tammy, we haven't sent this out, or have we, or just people that have asked for it? Okay. For those of you that do need it, if you can't get to it, contact the hotline and they'll give you the URL. Probably the easiest way to do this, because we know not everybody uses it anyway. Let's do it this way. As I mentioned, it's changed to reflect how rules are stored in NASIS 6.0 or 6.1 data structure now. So there wasn't much associated with it. Web Soil Survey 2.3. The version we've been waiting on for a while, but it's now in the QA testing process. They tell me there's a month to 6 weeks of work left on that, so hopefully we'll see it somewhere around late May time frame. New features associated with it allows for the import and export of the AOI boundary file. You can also bookmark the AOI to come back to it. Coordinates or vertices of the AOI can be embedded in a URL and submitted to Web Soil Survey. That's not anything you're likely to use, but it does allow some customers to program an application to run directly against Web Soil Survey, and they can generate the URL coordinates. We've added back in the quick navigation to U.S. territories, and there's new ways of showing or entering lat-long coordinates. To export the AOI boundary, basically you have to create the AOI boundary manually within Web Soil Survey as you're used to doing. And then under the AOI properties pane, there's an option to export that AOI as a zip shape file. And I think there's another option there too. I've got some screenshots coming up here. You have to enter a file name you want it saved as on your computer, and then you click the export button. So in the Web Soil Survey interface, we've got an AOI designated over here, and then back under the Area of Interest tab, there's the option to export the AOI. And you can export it as a zip shape file, and there's a box here for you to type in your name, the name of the file you want it called, and then a button to actually do the export. Then it'll pop up a little information box with a link to the file where you can download it to your computer. Then there's the ability to import an AOI boundary file, which might be the one that you just created and saved on your local computer, or it might be one that you've created externally using ArcGIS or some other GIS software and saved it. It has to be a shapefile format, and there's two of the files that it needs. It needs the .shp and .prj files to be imported. In 2.3, there's still the limit that AOI has to be less than 10,000 acres. It needs to be less than about 90 vertice points on the boundary, and the size of the file needs to be less than about 100 megabytes. Now this is just for 2.3. What we're seeing with 3.0 so far is that this AOI limit very likely is going to go over 100,000 acres. Maybe considerably over. We just don't know how big yet. But this will be limits for 2.3. This is something the conservation planners have been asking for a long time, as well as a lot of external users to be able to import this file. So in the new features section of Web Soil Survey 2.3, it includes this stuff, and that's where these screenshots are coming from at this point. So when you import one, you get an option here under the AOI to import it, and you can either do it from a shapefile or from a zip shapefile that you already have. And excuse me, it allows you to browse to the location on your computer where that shapefile is stored. You highlight it and start the import process. And then if you don't already have it zipped up, there's instructions for selecting the .shp and the PRJ files to include and upload them. Another feature is there's a new link option added to the menu bar up here called Link. And if you click on that, it opens up in a box that shows the URL of your AOI at this point with all the vertices included in it. You can right-click on this somewhere in this URL, and it'll give you the option to save it as a save target as, and you just save it back to your computer as a bookmark in your browser. And if you go back to it and click on it, it'll take you right back into Web Soil Survey to that predefined AOI. So that's one way a producer or a user can bookmark a number of AOIs if they've got multiple farms that aren't connected or fields or whatever the case might be. and they can save one for each one of them and go back to them as they need to. In the address quick navigation, we've added back in Puerto Rico and the other territories. Those can now be queried for. We can enter addresses for those. We had that in an earlier version, and then we switched to a different service that provides this address lookup, and we lost it, and now we have it back. In the lat-long data entry, there used to be multiple boxes here depending on what format you wanted to enter the lat-long coordinates. Well, now there's just one box, but it will accept various formats. And there's a list of those that are available. You can do it in decimal degrees. In different ways, you can use the latitude, comma, negative latitude type entry. You can use north and west, east and south directional indicators. You can put a tilde mark between them instead of a comma, or you can put the little degree symbol on there. I'm not sure how my keyboard does that, but it allows it. You can still do degrees, minutes, and decimal seconds, degrees and decimal minutes, or you can just put in GPS coordinates without, it says north latitude, west longitude instead of putting the letters after the numbers. Or you can do this, what WKT, which is well-known text, which is something I don't know what it is, but it's a different format that is acceptable. It's well-known, but not to this guy. So any questions on Web Soil Survey?
Link with coordinates, that would be emailable too, rather as well as just bookmarkable? Like I could put that in an email and send it to someone?
Yes.
Okay. I thought so. I just wanted to check. That's very cool.
Which you could basically do today, but this is just for a single point, like it is in the operational Web Soil Survey today. But yeah, you could email those coordinates to somebody and they could input them.
The link, that you'd be able to click on the link and get your same AOI?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, back up on the previous screen, if you copy this URL, and let's see, is this, I guess a right click doesn't, you can do a copy. You can copy that shortcut and paste it into an email address, message and send it to somebody. And that's going to be very useful to the hotline staff here, even for troubleshooting issues, to get back to the same location where a user's having problems at.
Yeah, no, that's very, very cool.
Hey, I had a question.
Sure.
Is there a way to pick a location in your area of interest and identify the lat and long?
No, not at this point.
Oh, okay.
So these are all WGS or NAT83 coordinates?
I believe the WGS 84.
Thanks.
I think the documentation says, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Anybody else? Okay, a little preview of what we're looking at for NASA 6.2. We're starting work on right now. We're looking at a significant addition again to the point data model change or structure, primarily to deal with data that's being collected in the Soil Survey Office mini labs, if you want to call them that. We've also got a had a list of pending changes that have been proposed over the last few years that we plan to address. The main objective for getting all these done at once is so we can finally update the PET-on-PC data structure to match NASIS. Right now it's about 8 years out of date. We're looking to move the map unit status column and the farmland class column from the map unit table to the legend map unit table where it more appropriately fits. That was basically a bust in the 6.0 data structure. We also are going to add a legend map unit history and text tables to the legend map unit, which we're not sure how much, probably most of what's in the current map unit history table would migrate to this legend map unit history table, this new table. But we know that there's correlation decisions made on the map unit itself as well as symbol changes or whatever might happen in the legend map unit table. So we want to provide you a way to keep track of both. A feature we're looking at is adding customizable choice lists in NASIS similar to what is in PET-on-PC. By customizable, I do not mean add choices of your own liking, but it would allow you to hide some of the existing ones and get them out of your way if they're things that you don't use in your area, which would shorten up those choice lists considerably in some of them especially when you get into the taxonomic choice lists and such. We're also looking at additional options in the way that we download data or manage the data between the national and the local database. As you're aware right now, when you download I'll say a legend from the national database to your local, you get the legend object, you get all the map units that are linked to it, and you get all the data map units and all the linked PET-ons and transects, which in many cases is much more than what you might want. And basically we've found out that the current process nearly prohibits editing statistical data if you have a need to. Especially, you can select individual map units and data map units, but as soon as you want to edit something in the legend map unit table, add a map unit or change a map unit name or whatever, you get it all, whether you want it or not. And that's a huge pile of data. So we're looking at different things we might do there to allow you to maybe do something like a download related, or only select certain objects that you actually download. There are some trade-offs, but we're looking at what possibility might be there. We're looking at ways to store digital images and document files. This is something we've been wanting to do for a long time, and it looks like we might finally get around to it, to be able to do something. Whether those will wind up residing directly in the NASIS database or just a way that NASIS can link to them stored somewhere else, we don't know how it might work, but we're looking at it. There's been a request to be able to adjust the font size on the screens for those people that are getting older and tired eyes or just somehow other visually impaired. We all know at the end of the day, your eyes get tired and sometimes small print gets harder and harder to see. Right now, there's not anything you can do about that. On the Web Soil Survey side and related to Soil Data Mart together, in Web Soil Survey 3.0, We're rebuilding the back-end operations of web soil survey, which basically means getting rid of Esri products and going strictly to SQL Server, which really isn't going to mean much to you except it's going to improve performance. And it's already shown that the code is much easier to maintain. The application becomes more stable and easier for the programmers in Fort Collins to keep it up and running. We're planning to switch over to Bing for a source of the imagery to get away from the Terra server that we're using right now. We've got all or parts of 7 states that currently do not have color NAPE imagery visible. We've been struggling for a couple years to resolve that. We still haven't been able to. This is one way to do it. Plus, it means somebody else is going to manage the imagery for us. We don't have to manage it ourselves. And it's already paid for through our Microsoft Enterprise license structure. As I mentioned earlier, it looks like we're going to be able to increase the AOI limit considerably. Early tests, at least 100,000 acres. We did one test at 300,000 and it still worked. So we don't know what the limit might be at this point. But anyway, it's going to be should be a dramatic increase. And a lot of that goes back to this first item I mentioned, that getting away from the Esri tools and going to something different to manage the back-end operations. We're planning to combine the functions of the web soil data mart, soil data mart application, not warehouse, which is report generation and a download function. We're planning to combine that all within the web soil survey interface. Just how that might look at this point, we don't know, but that's the objective. There's several new data elements in the NASIS database that are not yet in the Soil Data Mart database and Surgo downloads. We plan to add, or we're thinking of adding most of those to the Soil Data Mart database at least, which would make them visible in Web Soil Survey through Soil Data Viewer rules or whatever the case might be, as well as making them available through the Soil Data Access Query Facility. They would not yet, or at least we're thinking they would not yet be available in Surgo downloads because they're not part of the Surgo data structure and the access template. But at least we'd get them partway there into the Data Mart and into Web Soil Survey. Adding the functionality to handle line and point map units where they exist, which right now there's not too many. But the idea is being able to handle them may encourage a few more. But we'll guess we can wait and see on that. We're looking to change the Soil Data Marts away to a WGS 84 projection, which has Mike over here smiling big, because that means we're going to be able to add the Pacific Island area data sets back into the Data Mart and make the spatial data there available. Reading it from what they tell us, it isn't going to change much in the 48 states, but for the Pacific Island area, it's a drastic difference on getting data sets to line up. Looking to add considerable additional content from ecological site descriptions, so that can be displayed in Web Soil Survey. And if Bureau of Indian Affairs comes through with a data layer showing Indian reservation boundaries or trust lands or some category of theirs, we plan to add that in as a quick navigation data layer in addition to the Forest Service areas and BLM and such that we have now. So, pretty much on schedule, and that's the end of my slides. So, if anybody's got questions, why, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Yeah, Jim, I got one relating to the web soil survey. Is there any talk out there about being able to change font size or color on those maps when you print them? We're having a lot of comments from our users. The symbols are terrible hard to read on a print.
Yeah, that's being kind of a small piece of Web Soil Survey 3.0, so it's coming.
Okay, good. That would be a good thing.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Jim, this is Roger in Vermont.
Yes, sir.
On the attaching photos in NASIS, would that have the functionality of being able to, say, attach a profile, a picture of a profile to the component, pad-on or something like that?
That's part of the vision. First, we got to provide a place to store them and get them there in the first place. But then, kind of the next step is being able to make use of them and linking them up to components or add-on descriptions.
So you guys are still working on figuring out how you want to store those. Is that correct?
Yeah, the how is what's being worked on. We've got a long laundry list of business requirements for them to work from. Some of you have probably heard about the content manager idea.
Yep.
That's one potential approach to actually store them there in some sort of a photo gallery or library, and then just being able to link to them from different places. But we are planning to come up with something in the NASA 6.2 time frame.
Okay.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm trying to handle, I have some MLRAs that have a lot of pad-ons, and I'm still struggling with out-of-memory issue on the larger, more than 6,000 pad-ons when I'm trying to look at that. Any thought as to future on that? How to deal with that?
Nothing specific, I guess. We're just going to have to look at it and see where the issue is, I guess. I know Henry Ferguson was doing some tests. And you're talking about exporting?
Yeah, I'm trying to...
Export or import?
Export.
Okay. To Analysis PC or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, Henry was running some tests the other day just to kind of see how big he could, how many he could do at once. He got a 5,000 to succeed. I haven't heard of where he got to otherwise, but yeah, we're looking at it. And are you running those offline against the national?
No, I'm not. I haven't done that. I close everything, so Outlook, nothing else is open, and I've been able to do about 6,500. That would be somewhere around the limit before I get to out of memory.
There may be we'll have to look. There may be some potential of doing them offline. I know the report scripts would have to be written different, but to get some parameters in there to select which ones you want. But we'll just have to keep looking at it.
Okay.
Anybody else? Well, if not, guess we can close it off for today. You all know where you've got our emails and phone numbers, so if you got questions come up, why, let us know. This is being recorded. I guess somehow I've got to shut the recording off. But I think we can shut it off for today, and we'll talk to you all later.